Hi guys, it's Sophie and welcome to the first around the world wrap up in a little bit of time. I've lost count of the numbers, they'll be in the video, messed it up last time. But yes, so essentially these are some books that I've read throughout my hiatus. There's going to be some like big countries in here because they're just the ones that I've like gravitated towards, the ones that there's more stuff from, but I wanted to just bring them in, and I kind of figure if I've read books from those countries and I was going to anyway, let's just count them. So it means I might read a few doubles, like America, I'll read a few doubles, Australia, England, whatever. Not fussed anymore. Having a bit of a chill time of it. So yes, I will show you what I've read. It's going to skip around a bit. The map is going to get exciting, but that's kind of fun. I'm excited. The first one I have is my pick for Croatia. And that one is The Ministry of Pain by Dubravka, Ugresic, she says. This is a really strange little book, and I'm going to chat a little bit about it, but essentially this is around a teacher who moves to teach Dutch in Amsterdam to lots of different people who've come from what used to be Yugoslavia. She has kind of fled her home country, as have all of these other people, to Holland, and they're all in this strange scenario in which they don't really belong in Holland. They don't know them feel as though they belong in Holland, but they kind of don't have a home to go back to, and what was Yugoslavia isn't there anymore. So they're kind of broken up into these little sections, these little groups, and find that they're kind of bound, despite the differences and despite the conflict in these countries, by the commonality of this Yugoslavian feel. They call it Yugo nostalgia in here. So we follow the teacher of a sort of creative writing class who is kind of facilitating this nostalgic remembering of these countries. But it isn't all like rosy, it isn't all kind of, you know, grandma's recipes for whatever. It's also, you know, the war and the horror and the death and all of the things that they've seen and can't forget as well. The book is, I think what makes it interesting, what I liked about it is it deals with displacement really well, and how people take their countries with them when they move to other countries, if that makes sense, which is something I haven't read about, I don't think, before. I read some stuff kind of similar based in the UK, but that's the first time I feel as though I've really got that sense from any other country. So whilst the book was set in Holland, it felt Croatian, if that makes any kind of sense. Yeah, I found it did get slow at points. There were bits that I kind of just didn't really understand why they were there, like there's whole sections where there's like pieces of these students' creative writing like assignments, and I mean it's like a whole chapter's worth, and they're really bad, and they're kind of supposed to be bad, but I nearly gave up. I nearly stopped reading the book like at this stage because I had to slog through like these really bad pieces of writing. And the book is written really beautifully, so it was really, I think that's one of the things that stopped me doing Around the World actually, was that I felt just really let down and a bit depressed and a bit kind of like, oh, am I going to have to read these over and over again? And there are a few other elements like that where there were just slow bits or bits that didn't feel as though they were necessary. So I think I gave this one like a 3 or 5, though I really do like a lot of what it does, and I think it's a really clever book. So yeah, make of that what you will, I guess. But it's a hard one because I don't know whether to recommend it. I'd recommend it for that specific experience of carrying your country with you. But I don't think it was like my favourite book that I've read in a while, if that makes sense. I gained from it, but I didn't love it. And the next one I have is a pick for Australia. A bit big. It's The Lost Thing by Shaun. I really needed like a picture book in my life. I just needed something easy and something I could just go through, and Shaun is fabulous. His style is so cool, and oh, you're just gonna have to have this instead of my face. His style is just so pretty and gorgeous, and like there's maths in here. I can't see what I'm showing you. There's maths in here and kind of diagrams and little jokes, like somewhere in here there's a creature reading the Idiot. It's just great, and yeah, I actually ordered another one of his books just because there's just a satisfaction to it, and I haven't chosen books that are graphic novels for around the world because it kind of felt a little bit like cheating, and I was worried people would stress if all I read from their country was like one graphic novel. So you guys know I do actually have another one for Australia as well, but I wanted to count this one as the one that I've read, and I think Shaun fabulous, like one of my absolute favourite like illustrated artist, graphic novels, whatever you want to call them, like ever. So I think that's a good accolade. I think if I was Australian I'd be fine with that. But yeah, so that's the one I chose for that country. And the next one I have is my pick for Greece. Now for this one I have Being and Things on Their Own, poems by Katerina Anghelaki-Rooke, she says. Do you know what? Greece was really hard for me to find, like I mean really hard for me to find, and I don't know if I just went down avenues of like looking for Greek literature that I couldn't get to, but I wanted modern stuff. I didn't want classic text, which would have been fairly straightforward. I wanted like modern Greek stuff, and I found it so difficult, and this one eventually sort of jumped at me, because I think in Greece she is one of like the sort of big poets, but I had never heard of her before. Her poems are sexy poems. I wasn't expecting sexy poems. There's one in here that's like an ode to a dildo. It's you know, there's stuff, but they're kind of quite like raw sexual poems that also like play around with nature and play around with that kind of imagery, so that it doesn't feel like an erotic poem, though as you read them you're very aware you're reading about sex. And to be honest, I don't really know that I expected that from this at all. And it's strange, it's kind of like the self and other and like how that relates to sex as well. And it's kind of like she's doing clever things with sex, if that makes sense, in terms of like all of the different meanings and all of the different things to be pulled from that act. Yeah, so sort of at face value I started reading them and was like, wasn't sure this was what I was looking for. But I actually think it's probably more intelligent than I gave it credit for on its first view, and having given it some time to like sit and settle, I think I've liked them more. I would be absolutely thrilled if you guys could leave any recommendations for translated Greek literature, fiction, poetry, whatever, in the comments down below, because I found it genuinely challenging to find some stuff. So if there is this reservoir of Greek literature that I'm not aware of, please do share it. I think it'd be great to get some links down below if you have any. And I have one for the States. So I have The Broom the System by David Foster Wallace. I was having a bit of a time of it. I wasn't really reading anything, and I thought, do you know what, David Foster Wallace, I miss you. We need a little bit of a catch up. So this is his first novel. He wrote it when he was like 24, 26, something like that. And I didn't love this book, though I did kind of love the reading experience. It was kind of like a nostalgia for me. There was a lot of stuff in here that was him figuring out things that he does really beautifully in Infinite Jest, and it was just kind of his voice was what I enjoyed more than anything else. The story is about a young woman called Lenore Beadsman, whose grandmother, who's also called Lenore Beadsman, escapes from a care home along with basically everyone else in the care home and all of the staff, and she's trying to find out the mystery of where her grandmother's got to, whilst also grappling with this very over-attached man who also happens to be her boss, and a parrot who kind of maybe might be God. So it's like, it's all of these kind of ideas, lots of like postmodern things going on. And there were some really fun elements in there. I think the thing I liked best actually was the main male character, who's called Rick, works for a publishing house, and throughout the story they have these breaks in the narrative in which he tells Lenore a story that's been submitted, and these kind of short stories within a story were just really clever ideas that I just liked being played with. And I think I kind of wish I'd picked up his short story collection, which was the other one that I was umming and ahhing about. I'm really glad I've read it. I think it, for me, was a really nice thing to read. So yes, I'm kind of glad this has been my pick for America. Feels like a bit of a cheat to rub off all of America because they split it into states. But you know what, it counts. I was only going to read one book. David Foster Wallace is a good one for me. And then the last book I have to talk about today is my pick from Mexico. So for Mexico, I chose the Iliac Crest by Cristina Rivera Garza. This one was a book that I saw the title, I saw the cover, and then I heard the blurb and I was like, just take my money. Basically, this is a story about a man who lives alone in a tiny windy little cottage overlooking the sea. He's a doctor, he works in this really isolated hospital, and this woman comes to his door that he doesn't know and lets herself in. And she begins scheming with a woman that he's betrayed in his past, and start to disrupt his concept of gender identity and self, and his interrelations with men and with women, and kind of work with like sanity and what's real and what isn't real, and how do you know when you're well and when you aren't well, and it's all of the things that I like just tied up in one. There's a lot to play with in here, and I wish I'd liked the reading experience a little bit more, because I think I liked what was in this much more than I enjoyed reading it, which it's a strange one. I think it was just because I've struggled so much with readings recently, and I think this was like the first heavy new thing that I'd picked up, and it was potentially just like my brain just readjusting to that, and taking in new information. So I think this is one I want to reread. I've had a few people actually, when I spoke about it, say that it's a really good one to reread. But I would actually recommend it. I think if it sounds interesting to you, it probably will be. I literally just jumped at it, like I saw it, heard about it, read about it, and I bought it within like a 2-minute stretch. And I'm glad I read this one for Mexico, because it did have that, like, oh, it sounds a bit ridiculous, but it had that kind of feel to it, and I really like South American literature for that feel and that kind of, I don't know what it is, like, but it's what I needed, and it just really kind of refreshed me and excited me for Around the World again, so I'm really thankful for that. Yeah, so those are the 5 books that I've got for this wrap up. Hopefully you are sort of okay with this oddly jumping around method of doing Around the World. I'm quite enjoying it. I'm about to go and scratch off all of my countries now, which is fairly exciting because the map is going to look very different at the end. In fact, in a second, before we say goodbye, here's a little overview of the whole map. So yeah, you can kind of see where we've got to. I think it's exciting anyway, hopefully you guys think it's exciting. I will see you soon in my next video. Probably going to be another wrap up, or maybe just another chat, or I don't know. We're leaving this open for once. I've closed myself too much to some stuff, so yeah, I'll see you soon. Don't know what it'll be about or when. You can tell I'm much happier with this whole thing. So hopefully you guys are too. I'll chat to you again soon. Bye.